Okay, so how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Deborah. How are you?
Doing great. Today is Wednesday, so we're recording this on a Wednesday and it's beautiful out. It's not too hot, there's no rain. I'm really doing phenomenal. And more importantly, I had a really good night's sleep last night. I think
Oh,
yeah,
good.
that makes for a really good day.
That tends to help. Well, the weather is not that good where I am, and I went out yesterday, so my sleep was but I'm still very, very happy to be here with you.
Good. Wait, so where are you? Where are you located?
I'm in Paris.
Okay, so I was in Paris not that long ago, and we were gone for 14 days, and everybody's like, "Well, when you're in Europe, you have to bring a rain jacket, and you have to bring an umbrella, and you never know when it's." We had 14 straight days. We were so blessed. No rain, not even a drizzle.
Oh,
It was
wow.
wonderful.
Were you just in Paris or in other
So,
places?
well, we flew into London. We were in London for 2 nights, and we took the Euro train to Paris, and then we stayed in Paris for 3 nights, and then we were in Reims, which the Champagne region of France for 3 nights, and then we took the Eurostar again over to Amsterdam for 5 nights.
Mm.
It was wonderful.
Oh, yes, and those are rainy places, so yes, you
We
are
were
blessed.
very lucky. We actually returned them because we didn't even take them out of the packages. So we got our money back. So it was like, and I said, my husband and I were like, well, you know what? If we didn't have them with us, it probably would have poured. So it's good we had them. Maybe, that kind of helped to offset it.
I agree.
So, yeah. So are you born and raised in Paris?
No, I come from the land of vampires, Transylvania. I'm born and raised Romanian.
Romanian. Okay,
Mm.
interesting. So when did you make that change to Paris?
I think I've been in France for about 13 years now, but I didn't come directly from Romania. I've also lived in Greece for a little bit, in Germany, and in India.
So you've really traveled, well traveled and experienced a lot of things.
Oh, I think so. I still think I have a lot of things to experience, but
Yeah, that's good. Well, it makes for a very interesting conversation and dialogue because we'll get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Paris.
what I'm doing, you mean in terms of work, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of
Well, yeah, well, okay, so yeah, I kind of left that very broad tonight. So
mm,
let's talk about what you do for a living and
okay.
how you promote and market what you do for a living.
Okay, lovely. I am a founder of 934 Leadership Advisors. I am an organizational behavior researcher finalizing my doctoral thesis, which by the time this airs will hopefully be ready and done. I am consultant. I am a trainer as well. I work with senior leaders and with C-suite on AI adoption from the point of view of an organizational behavior researcher, meaning that my hypothesis is that AI adoption is not primarily a technological challenge, but first and foremost, a human and organizational challenge. So I work with them on implementation, but from this point of view first. And once you get that down, usually AI adoption is a tool adoption problem. I'm exaggerating, but only mildly. I do that. I do a little bit of content creation. I do a little bit of teaching. Yeah, that's me.
Hey, well, that's a long list. So, how did you get into this business? Like, where were you? Were you in France and then you started it? And how did all this happen?
I've been in big tech for about a decade. So I used to lead strategic partnerships in content and data for companies like Microsoft and Meta across several different countries. which is a way of saying that I was a deal maker. I used to lead multi-million dollar negotiations with C-level executives and very senior leaders related to data and content. When I was still at Meta, I went back to school to study organizational behavior as a doctoral student. That's an old passion of mine. And after a while, I decided to leave Meta. I was still doing my doctorate, and I was wondering what to do next, whether to go back to corporate or to go on my own. I wasn't too excited about what I was seeing in terms of jobs in corporate. And I think it's also because I've had the great privilege of working on really, really cool, sophisticated projects very early on. So I was a bit picky. I didn't see anything exciting at the time. And then I started thinking of potentially doing something of my own. That got me super excited. So here I am today.
Nice. Okay, so I don't know if I knew that about you, that you worked with Meta. And then, so how did you convert that into and actually launch your business?
Well, having worked at Meta and having worked at Microsoft, I'm used to working on strategy. I'm used to working with very senior leaders to have a bird's eye view. And then I combine that, the very practical point of view, the point of view of the practitioner, with the point of view of the researcher that I gained while I was redoing my studies. And then I mix both of them, which from what I'm seeing was quite rare in the market. And now I'm able to deliver, I'd like to say experiences, but I'm able to advise companies and to train them on how to look at this problem that we're facing today.
Okay. Oh, so do you see it as a problem or do you see it as an opportunity to grow? But let me back up for a second. So I've
Yeah.
had a couple guests have come on, and we had all different perspectives of AI and what it's going to do. And we've talked about whether it's a trend, or is it a fad? Is it something that's going to really grab hold, and are we really moving forward with it, or is it just going to be a fleeting thing, and and it's going to be gone in 10 years, right? So we
Mhm.
talk about that, and then we talk about the application of it, and then there's so many companies, to your point, for what you're doing. There's so many organizations, large, small, solopreneurs, big organizations, Fortune 500s, Fortune 100s, that are racing to put some type of AI something into their business, but they're doing it clunky. It's not sophisticated, it's not streamlined, it's not efficient, and it's really not cost effective. And I think what's happening is, or what I've seen, my experience in the conversations that I've had with others, is that it's actually it's actually hurting their business because they're not doing it well enough, that they're losing customers because the customer experience on the other end is not seamless, it's not smooth, it's not enjoyable. Their clients don't want to deal with it, so they go to the competitor. So you're working with these organizations, and you brought up the AI, so I'm going to jump on that for because of the what's been going on recently in the marketplace. What are you seeing is the way to really work with AI, not just internally, but externally, to ensure that your clients are getting a good experience working with your company? How do they do that?
Okay, a
There
lot
was
to
a lot
unpack
there.
there.
Yeah.
I'm going to address the first point with, is it a problem or is it an opportunity? It can be both. It depends. It depends how you tackle it. But it can be an opportunity. Now, as you've said, everybody's trying to get some AI in all the functions somewhere, and it's clunky. The thing is, most companies have done one of two things until now because AI has been a beast that, yeah, nobody knew what it really was actually. So Most companies were in one of two camps. One was, um, okay, I'm going to wait and see what other people do before I implement. And second one was, I'm going to stick my hand in the sand, pretend this isn't happening, and hope it will go away. It's not going away. This is technology, this is a tool, but it's a technology that will reinvent the way we are working. And it's not necessarily, the questions we need to ask are not necessarily about technology, but they're also about how is work being reinvented? How is this impacting employees? How is this impacting our professional identities? And then go from there. And from there on, it can be a technological issue once you get all these things done internally. And I believe it will usually reflect on how things are done externally as well.
So I don't know if this is correct thinking or not. So if I'm wrong, please don't hesitate to say, nope, that's totally wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
So I go back and I look at when the Google search engine first started, and I think to myself, I would just type in what I was looking for, right? We all still do. And that's a form of AI because it's doing the research for me. I'm not going to a library and pulling out an encyclopedia. I'm not looking up things in reference guides. I'm not calling up the companies to ask, what their policies are. I can go online and say, what are the policies of blah, 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 whatever company, XYZ, regarding return policies, right? If I buy a product and I need to return it, what's the return policy? And instead of calling up the company, I can go to Google and it'll find it for me. So I go back and I think to myself, well, that was a form of AI. And they just didn't call it that because that's what it was doing. Is that totally wrong thinking, or am I on the right track there?
That wasn't really AI in the sense that it was just an inventory. And you were finding they found ways for you to search in the library in an easier way. So what you have right now, where it kind of puts things together, it thinks for you, it generates what potentially you might be thinking or you might want. That's another type of technology that is added to it. So it's another layer, it's a next step. I think it's a bit more of a revolution than what we've seen in the past, but yeah, I mean, I suppose, it's happening slowly, it's happening quickly. It really depends on how you look at things and from which perspective. Whenever you had really big technologies coming in, certainly the time frame was much larger, but much longer, but it did feel to everybody like things were happening really, really quickly. So, reskill and adapt. We had that for everything that was blue collar work before, when we had machines come into factories, and everybody said, "Okay, reskill, reskill." I suppose now this is happening to quote unquote white collar jobs. Reskill, reskill. It's time to learn something new. It's time to reinvent. Certainly, this brings a lot of uncertainty and instability. But as you've said, it can also be an opportunity to reanalyze the work we're doing, realize that a big chunk of that was manual, repeatable work that's really not fun for anybody and sucks the soul out of the people doing it. Give that to AI and keep what's meaningful for us, everything that's related to interaction, to judgment, to context, all those things that humans do really well, and AI is not that good at it. And, let AI take that work that's not as interesting off our hands.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. So I'm processing all of this. Your piece of this, what you do for your clients, when do they call you? What's the challenge that is like, oh, we got to call Corina. We need help.
Right.
Yeah.
They call me when they've tried to adopt AI, adopt a lot of new tools, but they're seeing that it really isn't working. And they're suspecting that the problem goes beyond technology and goes beyond the tools. And that's when I come in and help them look at how they're communicating with their workforce. Is the workforce perceiving AI implementation as a threat to, am I going to be replaced? Is this a threat to my professional identity? Because even if you think about it, as you implement AI, if you're not communicating with your workforce, giving them assurances and guarantees, the real honest ones, that they have a future with the company, that there is a shared future together, what is even the point of them adopting this new technology and implementing it and making it work? There really isn't. I mean, what are your choices? Training it to replace you or not adopting it and getting fired? You're in a sort of catch-22 there. So the question is, okay, how are you communicating this? Are you building in assurances? Are you teaching everybody? Are you training everybody in the same way? Because not everybody needs the same type of support. You'll have different populations in there. You have the enthusiasts who are probably around 20% of the population who are using it a lot and really loving it. You don't need to necessarily train them in the same way that you train the others. You kind of need to make sure they understand what's okay and what isn't before they become a liability for your governance. Then you have the pragmatists, which are probably around 60%. These are the people who need to see use cases, to see other people using it, to understand that it's safe, and to get training on what the best ways to use it are. They don't necessarily oppose it, but they do need to, you know, see it used safely, understand how this thing works. And then you have about 20% who are very anxious about the fact that they will be replaced. These people probably need coaching, they need guarantees, they need other type of supervision than the other bunch. So, are you looking at these pieces? How are you as an organization looking at these pieces? Then there's a question of capability in the sense that AI is not all knowing, AI is not all powerful. Humans are better at certain things, machines are better at certain things. Are you mapping out which one is which? And are people gaining appropriate training based on what they need to do, what they can automate? How is this made fun? Is this made interesting? Are they seeing the incentives? And then lastly, you have a leadership challenge in the sense that this the old behaviors, the old leadership habits, they don't necessarily work anymore. So what are the new behaviors that must be developed and encouraged in order for these leaders to take the transformation forward? And one thing I always ask the organizations I work for is, are your leaders using AI? Because you have this thing where your senior leaders will just say, you need to use AI, everybody must roll it out. But they don't do it themselves. So, one, they're not role modeling. And two, they lack a lot of empathy for what people are going through. And it's very important that they understand that it's not that easy, not that fast, that it's doable, but they must get their hands dirty as well to show the workforce, to show their employees that they're doing it too, that they're in the trenches, that they understand what it means to implement. And if you get these three, sounds easier, but it's more difficult than it sounds. But if you get these three interconnected layers down, then you have, then AI becomes a technological problem. But before that, you don't have a technological problem. You have an organizational problem.
Yeah. Well, a human, right? Because we're humans and we
Also
have
a human.
feelings, and yeah. It's interesting what you said about the higher level executives and the CEOs and the presidents. So if they're not, and I think with any culture, with any shift that they're looking to create, they have to roll up their sleeves and be a part of it. They can't say, well, this is okay for you, but I'm going to stay over here and you guys got to do a good job and I'm just going to watch. And if I don't like the results, well, I'll fire everybody, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Doesn't
absolutely.
work. So when you're working with a client, do you have like one particular story that was a really spectacular success that you want to share? You don't have to tell the name of the client, just a story, you know?
Um, well, let me tell you, before I tell you a story of a client, let me tell you an actual story of something that's happened in the past and still manifests today. So here's a story for you. Did you know that in the 1930s, Keynes predicted that his grandchildren will work a 15-hour work week?
No, I never heard that.
Yeah, in the 1930s. And that never happened. He was actually questioning what his grandchildren would do with all that free time. But that never happened because somewhere along the way we've decided that what we did was tied to our actual work identity. It was tied to our identity. You ask people what they do, they tell you who they are. What do you do? I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. So to do less meant to be less, right? So we kept inventing a lot of work, new work all the time, time and again. And well, we also consumed much more, but the things are interrelated. So at the end of the day, we find ourselves at the same sort of vantage point. Is this going to just create more work for everybody? Or are we at the point where we can actually create more meaningful work, well, less work, but richer work, more productive work, more meaningful work? Or are we just going to pile up new types of tasks that maybe don't make sense?
That's really interesting. There's in alignment with that, thank you for bringing that up. There's a book out called The 4 Hour Work Week. Are you familiar?
Mm.
Very. And the 4 hours to me, that's really short, 4 hours. And yet when you think about the quality of life, and you mentioned how we identify with ourselves, I think a lot of people really are what they do for a living. They don't, they're living their lives, like you said, they're a teacher, they're ABC, whatever the label is. And you're right, when people say, what do you do? I can answer a million different ways, but usually the first thing out of my mouth is I assume they're talking about work, and I tell them what I do for a living, and I don't say I'm the mother, I'm the wife, I'm a sister, whatever. I don't do all of that. And I don't say that I love, what I love to do as far as how I fill my soul. So here's an opportunity. So AI comes in and it makes the jobs for most people more efficient. You're leveraging your time. You're leveraging money because you're spending less time and money and energy on things that you can now pull out and use AI for, right? Some people will reduce the amount of time they have an office assistant, maybe a secretary, or not to reduce her time, but take away the menial tasks, like you said, the repetitive things that can be done on an automated basis that still need to be checked, because my experience is that you still have to check and sometimes push back, because all of the AI, I go back and I say, what was your source? Where did you get this information from? I don't want you to tell me your AI speak. I want you to actually give me so you have to go back a lot and give it real clear, specific instructions to get the best quality information output. When you're thinking about that and you think about, okay, so you're the CEO of a business, you want to leverage your time. you want to spend your time doing the things that bring you joy, that are in alignment with your purpose, and that you're really good at. So if you're a what they call a rainmaker in business, you're the one who goes out there and attracts the clients, and you go out there and you have the relationships. You're on the golf course, you're at client dinners or whatever. All of those tasks that you would normally have had to have done at 9 o'clock at night as a solopreneur, you don't have to anymore because now you have somebody who can run your AI. AI can run the program for you. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so AI probably, and I don't know, you can probably tell me, will AI ever be able to actually run a company? Would the CEO or an angel investor ever be able to completely rely just on AI to run a full-fledged business? And I think it's kind of already happening, but you still need some human beings in the mix, right? Am I
Oh,
totally
yeah.
out there?
No, I think one of this year's predictions was that we'll see the first billion-dollar company created by one person and a lot of agents and a lot of AI layers on top of it. From what I know, that hasn't happened yet, but I do think you, depending on what you do, I think you can totally run a company today using AI only.
Yeah. So what industry do you think would be the first one? Let's do some predictions here. Which organ, what kind of industry and what professions? Doctors, forget about it. Doctors, you can't. The trades, you still need a plumber, an electrician. You need somebody to actually do the work. So that's out. So what industries do you think will be the most impacted and maybe the first ones to go more AI?
Well, I mean, think of knowledge work. I think at this time we're only seeing tasks being replaced for knowledge workers from from an AI point of view. It's difficult to say because we had this thing, there was this prediction that radiologists would be the first to go, and radiology is actually booming because AI augmented but did not replace.
I'm with you.
I think you have, for example, a lot of translation services, everything that's based on language and on prediction, but AI is not that good at context, right? So potentially very sensitive translations, direct translations would still need somebody. And again, a lot of things are transforming, a lot of jobs have changed due to technology. If you think about it, you used to have in the past assistants who just typed on the machine all day. And that's what they were trained to do. You don't have that today anymore. Or at least I don't think it's a very, you
Yeah.
might have some people who type for other people, but I can't imagine in what circumstances. Maybe sometimes it's good. Maybe sometimes it's not the most interesting work. It's a time to reskill, it's a time to embrace uncertainty, and yeah, it's scary, but I think it can also be an opportunity as we've discussed, depending how we go about it.
Yeah, I think so too. It's so interesting. And you look at some of the tasks. I want, I used to work on an IBM Selectric typewriter. Half the audience probably doesn't even know what a typewriter is anymore. And back then, in those days, that's what I did. I took notes, I took transcription, I did stenography, I went out to and I typed up the letter, and I sent it back to I had to print it out. There was no email. I had to print it out and he would make changes to it. Then I'd have to go back and type it again. It was such a time suck, okay? Just to go back to the energy sucking thing, right? So in that regard, the computers and doing things more efficiently and effectively and taking that skill set, I could type 80 words a minute or more, right? Which is considered pretty good. Um, and now it's those tasks, and you had to think, and there was some thinking involved. But they were pretty low level as far as intellectually challenging. Okay. And I experienced it. So I'm talking about my own experience. I don't want to I'm not disparaging anybody who's an executive secretary today, although I think you're right. I think there's less and less of them. I think they do a lot more. I think they become office managers and they deal with higher level. And I think that's what's happened. Those menial, administrative, repetitive, monotonous types of tasks. Now that that skill set is kind of being used electronically and being leveraged, I think human beings have to think more. They have to be more strategic. I think they have to be smarter. They have to think out of the box. They get an opportunity to be more creative and to think about what they want in their lives and have some visions and some goals, which back then it was you went to work, you sat behind a desk and you typed. 5 o'clock came, you put on your sneakers, you walked to the subway station. I'm talking about me, and you got on the train. You commuted for an hour and a half back home. That's what we did back in the day. I worked in Manhattan, and that's what we did. We weren't thinking about computers and technology and how to make our jobs easier. It just was what it was. And I think you're right. I think this has been a progression. We've escalated our leveraging of technology. And I think human beings are pretty smart. I don't think that technology will ever take over the world I know there's sci-fi movies where, technology sucks human beings into their vortexes. And I think that's sci-fi fantasy. I don't see that actually happening. So
I
at least I
think
hope not.
I think before we even get to technology destroying humanity, that's the main concern is people with very strong technology who don't have the best intentions. So I agree with you. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's something to be scared of, at least not at this point. But I think the problem with that is that it can take the attention away from this idea of the actual problem could be people with bad intentions who probably consider that their intentions are good, who have very strong technology and who can do a lot of damage.
So how do we protect society from those people?
I think at our level, what we can do is one, don't feel not feel powerless and don't let it become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think we still have voices. We are many. We should not become complacent because the future doesn't happen to us. We create the future deliberately. And I think there's a lot of agency in that, and there's a lot of power in numbers. And we need to be conscious of that.
Okay. So that was really powerful what you just said. So thank you for saying that. And I think you're correct. I think we have to stay aware and not be complacent. And I think that can happen so easily over time because things get chipped away and you
Yeah.
don't even realize it. And then 5 years, 10 years goes by and we're in a very different space. So I think, yeah, thank you for saying that. That was pretty profound. It was good. So, all right, my dear, if somebody does want to reach out and learn a little bit more about you and what you do, what's the best way for people to find you?
The best way for people to find me is on my LinkedIn page, on my site at corinataban.com, or at my email address hello@corinataban.com.
Okay, very nice. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If there's one last nugget, I mean, that last nugget was so good. I almost don't want to ask you to provide another one, but if there was one more thing that you wanted to leave on a note with, just food for thought, a belief, or just a word of advice, do you have one nugget that you would like to share?
If I have one nugget that I would like to share, yes, let me get back to that Keynes' prediction in 1930s. I think that people should ask more of their leaders. I think it's a great time to bring more meaning into work and to get rid of the soul-sucking tasks that nobody is really interested in. But I also think that it's a time where we are rebuilding. We should ask more. We should, as employees, as the workforce, should not necessarily accept less. We should not accept scarcity mindset where we are asked to do more with less resources and at the same time not get any of the incentives that are behind that. I think people can contribute a lot to where this transformation is going, and that's empowering to control, to have agency over your work. So I'd say, as famous last words, be empowered, have agency, ask more of your leaders, and ask more of your technology and of the world you live in.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. I appreciate you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's Corina. I'm saying it correct.
Karina.
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 Karina. Okay. I said it right. All right. I thought maybe I said it incorrectly. Thank you again. We so appreciate you being here and for sharing your time with us.